Start now?
Yes.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rehab Najib and I belong to Pakistan. I am a research fellow at Women Ascension, a global organization dedicated to advancing peace, justice and women's rights. It's an honor to be here with you all. Before we dive into today's important topic, let me tell you a bit about Women Ascension. Women Ascension is a global cause non-profit organization that works for the betterment of the society and for the upbringing of the downtrodden segments of the society by outlining female issues as well as targeting 17 SDGs in 81 countries virtually by collaboration and numerous projects. It was founded by Dr. Maheen in 2021. Within Women Ascension, we have a specialized division called Women Ascension Peace and Justice Fostering Pluralism. This division focuses specifically on Sustainability Development Goal number 16, which aims to promote peaceful and inclusive societies, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Today's webinar will focus on accessible and inclusive education for marginalized communities for sustainable development in the prospect of Pakistan. This is a critical issue that affects millions of lives. The lack of accessible and inclusive education for marginalized communities in Pakistan has created significant challenges limiting access to essential learning resources, educational opportunities, and personal development. We will explore the far-reaching consequences of this educational disparity, from immediate barriers to learning to long-term developmental setbacks. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speakers for joining us today. We are fortunate to have a panel of experts who bring a wealth of knowledge and experience on these subjects. First speaker will be Dr. Maheen Amjad. Dr. Amjad is a distinguished entrepreneur, mentor, and a public figure recognized as the best global young leader. She is the first woman in her region to earn a PhD and is committed to academia, particularly in entrepreneurship. Dr. Maheen collaborates with national and international universities and platforms to reform entrepreneurial educational policies. Dr. Maheen also leads education and women's development efforts at Feed the Poor and serves as President UAE for the World Humanitarian Leadership Movement. Professionally, she is a CEO of Entrepreneurs Equal and chairperson of Trade Turner, supporting charitable causes and providing employment opportunities. Let's move towards the introduction of Ms. Tayyaba Zulfikar, who will be our second speaker today. Ms. Tayyaba, a dedicated English language teacher who has taught at 8 universities in Pakistan and is currently at GIK with a focus on empathetic leadership and student-centered learning. Ms. Tayyaba has empowered over 50 teachers and mentored countless students. She is a TESOL practitioner, MOOC facilitator, and e-teacher scholar known for integrating innovative educational technologies to create engaging and impactful learning experiences. Let's move towards our last speaker, Ms. Sana Ilyas. Ms. Sana Ilyas brings over 13 years of teaching experience to her role as course coordinator for English at FAST Islamabad. She holds an MPhil from Fatma Jinnah Women University and is passionate about using technology to make education more inclusive and equitable in Pakistan. With specialization from top universities like Michigan and Vanderbilt, Sana is dedicated to bridging educational gaps for marginalized communities through innovative tech solutions. Her mission is to create engaged, tech-enhanced learning environments that provide quality education for all. Dear viewers, please be informed that today's discussion will be a panel format, allowing us to gain deep insights and explore potential solutions from these esteemed experts. We hope to understand not only the challenges posed by the lack of accessible and inclusive education, but also the opportunities for educational reform and development under these difficult circumstances. Now, As we proceed, please feel free to ask your questions. We will address as many as possible. To start, let's hear from our first speaker, Dr. Mahin Amjad. Dr. Mahin Amjad, uh, I will start from a question. Uh, my question for this webinar is why should the emphasis be placed on accessible and inclusive education, and what role does educational equity play in ensuring strong institutions and effective governance?
Thank you, Rihab, for this question. Um, Inclusivity as a whole is a much needed phenomena in society at this moment. The reason is that now it's just an element which we like to highlight, but since centuries, since time, we are always part of a system in which we are equally contributing. But now, with time, we are marginalizing things, and education is one of them. So, if we not put our efforts towards inclusion, we don't understand the dynamic of skills that each set of gender has it. And in education, especially when we consider Pakistan, we have not the dilemma of just inclusivity. We have a problem of a mindset, cultural barriers, and expectations from female side. So we are struggling because now the society of Pakistan is has divided into a certain segments. One segment, they have the support of a family. They are growing up. They are doing exceptional in the market. The other one, they are struggling with the family, and they're trying to adjust themselves with their dreams and trying to compete in the market. The other one is they have no clue what their role and rights are as a woman. So when we talk about education, first step of awareness, 70% of Pakistan doesn't know the right awareness for themselves when it's come to female, and education is one of them. So the reason of not having the right output, though we are trying to bring in bridges, we're not able to overcome it, is because we are not able to successfully convince the mindset, the culture, the barriers, the right barriers, to make them understand that the rights and the perception and the expectation doesn't come in between when it goes for practicing as a human what they really need to do. So when we look into our communities, even you see it in your surrounding. Let's take example of our city where we are at this moment. So you can see different houses had different stories. When with different stories, they have different pattern of success rate as well. So success really depends on what, as an individual, you are achieving, what you're learning within your family. With this conversation, I hope we have other speakers, Ms. Sana and Ms. Tayyiba, would also input this effort that, and would like to convince others as well that how much and the micro level we have to work, and how much this support is needed in Pakistan, so that we bring a confident women in the society towards education, so that they can bring in change and expertise that each individuals have. Thank you, Rehal. Yes, Rehal. I'm done with the question.
Thank you, Dr. Mahin, for those insightful remarks. I hope that our viewers will gain inspiration and motivation from what you have just said, and they will take away something useful, something important from it. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Tayyaba for the question: what efforts are being made to address the educational disparities in marginalized communities in Pakistan, and what challenges exist in achieving balanced and inclusive education? Dear Ms. Tayyaba, I would like you to answer this question.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And being an educationist for the past decade, and working on education from grassroots level, I believe that it should be compulsory, and as per the there's a 25A amendment. It's important for every child to seek education. It should be compulsory and free from 5 till 16 years of age. So, having said that, it is something which is extremely important, and efforts are being made. Unfortunately, they're a bit slow. And then there are some areas like, Balochistan and Quetta, where they're currently not being under implemented, if not being implemented at all. So I believe that efforts are being made, especially, there is this specific generation, which we call Gen Z, has made a lot of role. They have played a lot of role in terms of social media, because there's a lot of unconscious learning that is happening in terms of awareness and education. And as you must know that these days, the situation that was 10 years ago or 20 years ago in terms of awareness of women's right, or, the some very tragic things being very common, like domestic violence was extremely common, and it was considered as something which is okay to make a house. But now these things are being questioned and people are not being okay with it. So education is something which is the first ever right of a child. And there are certain programs like EHSAS program, which are financially assisting the low income families to support children's education. And I believe that if we talk about equity, if I connect this question with the first one, then it's extremely important for parents to realize that once they bring a child in this world, they should understand that a child cannot, upbring itself on their own. There is a thing called something which is known as upbringing, because we cannot place anything and everything on the government, that it's the government job. If we talk about 1400 years ago, there were no schools and people were self-educating themselves. So there are so many ways in which one can, educate their child. For example, I have like 5 nieces and nephews, and I, not being immediately present with them, whenever I meet them, I educate them on names of countries, on flags, on plants names. So, these days, the effort should be from every single person. Whenever you meet a child, you should be able to educate them, right? So, this is important. Challenges do exist in inclusive education. For example, like there are certain NGOs, like I was working previously in Amal Academy, and Amal Academy is also playing a lot of role in giving very affordable education to university students. And then there are many communities, many colleges like Akhwat Foundation and Teach for Pakistan, and then the Citizen Foundation. They are putting in a lot of efforts, especially for people who are not able to, who are currently struggling with finances. So they are a couple of organizations who are working. A few challenges are that, these days after COVID, especially, the world has switched to technology, and it's kind of important for every child and every school to have at least some sort of technology, like a computer center, to let a child or kids know or students know that, the world out there is so much happening. For example, these kind of things are happening a lot in India. And as you can see that most of the Indians are also quite, they are really going places in in Singapore, in United States. And similarly, they're also cascading all of these trainings in India as well. So these are a couple of challenges. Technology, e-learning platform should be incorporated, mobile application should be incorporated. Um, Teacher training should be extremely important, because the teachers, there's this quotation, those who can, they do, those who can't, they teach. So this stereotype associated with teaching, that, when you can't do anything, let's start teaching. Teachers are the pride of our country. It's a noble and very divine profession. So teachers should also be respected as such. They should be given proper training. They should be empowered to be able to enable students in terms of regardless of gender. And then, unfortunately, there are a couple of financial constraints, limited government fundings, which are not enough so that, we can make our schools better. And it kind of breaks my heart that, we make such big malls and stadiums and mosques, but when it comes to the basic right, which is education, the schools are severely underfunded. So I am hoping that, Pakistan is going to slowly and gradually understand that, if a school is well funded, teachers are well trained, and students are empowered in terms of, attendance being 50-50, all genders, male, female, um, you know, those who identify as male or female, they all should be there and everybody should be getting. And I'm really hoping that, soon in maybe 10 years, we're able to get 100% literacy rate. So thank you so much for asking me this question.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tayyaba. I have one more question for you. As I have seen in your profile that you have taught in 8 universities in Pakistan,
Yes.
I would like to ask you that as a university lecturer, what do you do or what do you share with your students to make them ambitious about settling themselves first? Obviously, everyone thinks of their prosperity and contentment. Students nowadays are looking for opportunities abroad. They will move someday, they will get settled there, and they will forget about this country. This is also what I believe is playing a basic role in making this country under the poverty line. Like, what I think is that what a teacher can do, how a teacher can inspire the students to come back to Pakistan and make here a better world for other people who cannot achieve those opportunities to go abroad.
Thank you so much. When I did my master's back in Namal, and I remember that one of my friends, she told me that you should apply for Fulbright and you should appear in GRE. So, being a student of English, I had no idea about any aptitude test except for IELTS and TOEFL. And I was like, what's GRE and what's Fulbright? So then I realized that when I become a teacher, I'm going to start telling my students about international opportunities um, from the get-go. So in my first semester, I mentor my students on various international opportunities. Now coming to the question that how should they be coming back? So, I first of all tell them like, we are from our like childhood, we are groomed that English is the most amazing language and any country is the most amazing country, right? And then we start converting rupees into dollars and everything. And I tell them that this whole world is a planet and there are, there are certain rooms in your house, which is there is a drawing room, a dining room. So all of these rooms have significance and no room is less than the other room, right? So, there is this country where you go, you get awareness, you travel, and the best way that you can learn is by traveling. You can even travel to Hunza, you can travel to Lahore, Karachi, and you're going to learn a lot. So, empowering them and mentoring them in terms of the fact that, they learned everything from this country and I have studied abroad. There is absolutely no difference. Yes, there is a difference of environment. There are a lot of, there's a lot of technology available, but, we study the same curriculum, right? So the teachers are better trained because of better funding and everything. So, this is how I tell them that because I'm a living example of the fact that I studied and then I came back and I'm serving in Pakistan and I'm better able to empower themselves. And the rest is, I mean, their own free will that if they wish to stay or go, but everybody wishes to explore. However, I do encourage and empower them to, serve their own country because, when you have a passport, you can always travel and then come back. And, because we have one country, Pakistan, we are proud Pakistani, so we owe something to our country. So these are the kind of pep talks that I give them. And inshallah, once my session starts in September, this is exactly what I'll be doing, inshallah, as well. So thank you, Rehab.
Thank you, Ms. Tayyaba. This was enlightening, and I'm very glad to hear this, that you will be starting a new session and you will be highlighting these parts. Now let's move towards our last speaker, Ms. Sana Ilyas. Ms. Sana, I have one question for you, which is how are considerations for accessible and inclusive education integrated into Pakistan's national education policy and recent educational reforms, and what constraints are hindering effective integration?
Thank you so much, Rehab, for this question. First, Dr. Maheen and Taiba have added such insightful points, and I want to add to them as well. Number one is definitely what Dr. Maheen talked about, that a mindset shift needs to be there, and we need to consider both the idea of accessibility and inclusivity beyond being buzzwords. We are really very good as talking about that, okay, yes, include anything that is on the go at the moment or anything that is in vogue at the moment and integrate it in our education policy or integrate it in our discussions. But the problem comes when it is about the implementation part. How much of that is there? How much awareness do people have about what these words actually mean? So, yes, mindset shift needs to be there, and that has to start with us. That has to start with uh, people that we connect with. As educators, I think so, we have a very big role, and we have the opportunity to actually talk to our students about such things and start off with them. And that will actually create the awareness of actually what these words or what these ideas basically mean. And then we can definitely go forth. In terms of talking about how these ideas or how these practices are integrated into Pakistan's education policies, as always, have had good ideas. Now, Pakistan definitely has taken a significant step towards accessibility and inclusive education through key policies and reforms. Now, have a look at national education policy, which emphasizes inclusive education as a fundamental right. But are students getting it? We know the reality of there is much more that needs to be done. And it aims to provide equitable access for all children, including those with disabilities and from marginalized communities as well. Moreover, in our legislative framework, including National Policy for Persons with Disability 2002 and Islamabad Declaration on Inclusive Education 2005, provides a solid foundation for promoting inclusive practices. Recent initiatives by different provinces have also tried to look into that, okay, what more can be done? Now, in terms of talking about what are the challenges, um, number one is basically insufficient funding. Sadly, in Pakistan, the education budget is the first one that gets slashed. Uh, it's not any other budget, but as of the moment, we're spending from the GDP 1.7 to 1.9%, and that's not enough. If we look at developing countries, as of the moment, they're spending much more. And that is where the difference comes in. That showcases our priorities as well. Second, insufficient awareness and training among educators. Yes, people who are sitting and talking about it in urban areas, maybe there could be awareness about that. But in the rural areas, what are we doing? How are we empowering educators to talk about all of these things? Then policy implementation gaps, and that is due to funding constraints and definitely due to weak monitoring. How monitoring is done? Do we have data? Do we have data to actually work on different things? Then persistent socioeconomic barriers and cultural stigma that, okay, related to women education, related to people who are different than us or who are differently abled, what their perception basically is. Media and books need to play a role in having representation for these people there, so that it showcases that yes, they're also part of our community, and slowly and gradually we need to have that social acceptability within our community for these ideas. Now, another thing, because I'm a really very big advocate like Taiba, related to technology, I believe that yes, there is in reality there's a big digital divide in Pakistan. But I think so it's technology that is along with awareness campaigns that can definitely help bridge the digital divide, and different countries have done so. That is through mobile education. Look at Kenya, look at India's digital initiative, look at Bangladesh BRAC education program, South Africa's Tactile Book Project, Nigeria's Learn Africa initiative. So all of these initiatives basically show that yes, technology within it has the space to help us. What we can do is definitely learn from them. Um, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, contextualize it for the Pakistani context. Because again, a one fit all formula for all of Pakistan cannot work. Something that works for rural Punjab may not work for rural Balochistan, may not work for Sindh, may not work for KP. So we need to be very, very careful, talk to people there, and have a look at that, okay, what their needs are. Maybe what they need is basically vocational training. Why is it their perceptions related to education really very different? We need to have a look at that and then talk about what can work out. Sitting far distanced away from them and deciding their fate and their future may not work out. So everybody who's part of that community where we want to bring in a certain program or where we're planning to, for example, Pakistan's education policy, again, talking about that sounds really wonderful. But how are we going to make any measures that are present there sustainable? Just have a look at, I'm just going to quote one more policy. Now, PM's Roshan Pakistan National Literacy Drive has this really wonderful initiative of um, each one teach one. So, which basically states that students from ninth onwards PhD are literacy teachers, and their responsibility is to teach one person, and then they have incentivized it as well. But we need to have a look at how can these measures be made sustainable. Are we are these policy matters going to really have an impact in the long term, and in what way? How can we ensure that the right people are being helped through such initiatives?
Thank you, Ms. Sana Ilyas, for your insightful, valuable insights. And as you just spoke about national education policy, I would like to ask you one more question. To what extent are Pakistan's educational policies aligned with international standards for inclusive education, and what are the gaps between policy formulation and implementation?
Thank you so much, Rahab, for this question. Pakistan's policy frameworks are aligned with the international frameworks. Now, for example, national education policy emphasizes inclusive education as a fundamental right for all. And this aligns with UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and Sustainable Development Goals, especially 4th and 16th that you quoted about, which targets inclusive and equitable quality education. For example, that policy commits to increasing the enrollment rate of children with disabilities, currently estimated at about 5% in the mainstream. The second one is the right of children to free and compulsory education. And this is something that's part of our constitution. Now, fifth to year 5 to 16, children are supposed to have free education. But then that is something that is not practiced as of the moment, or where the practice is, it's really, if we look at the ratio, it's going to be really, really less. And then it also, in terms of our education policy aligning with international standards, it is also catering to diverse learning needs, including girls, children with disabilities, and those from disadvantaged backgrounds as well. The Transgender Person Protection Act, for example, mandates the inclusion of transgender children in mainstream education. As of the moment, the education setting or what is there is that they definitely have a separate school. To make it more mainstream or to include them in the educational process, I think some more work in terms of awareness also needs to be there that, okay, what more can be done? Why there is a gap between formulation and implementation is number one, as talked about, budgetary concerns, it is insufficient resources and fundings. Despite every government's promise that, okay, they're going to increase the education budget, or they're worried about education, the education budget is the one that usually bears the brunt of of whatever that they're considering. It's not one of the priorities that is present there. Most of the time, at max, I do think so. We have spent about 2% of the GDP there, where more needs to be done in a country like Pakistan, where the youth bulge is really, very large. Inadequate. Number two is going to be inadequate teacher training, and it's not on part of the teachers. It's basically the whole system that needs a reassessment. Now I do think so is the right time to do so. Where globally, education systems are talking about that. Okay, with the integration of AI, the way things are changing, how is education going to change? I think that all stakeholders within Pakistan are also sitting together, including the teacher in the classroom. They can discuss and they can talk about, okay, how do we need to reimagine education for different sectors, whether that's vocational training, whether that's somebody who's going to do a certification, whether somebody wants to do a degree program. So in what way can that be reimagined? There's a lot of focus on skill-based education. So we is our education policy per se, yes, education policy does state that, but the way the curriculum is designed out of the moment does not state that. Then there is this cultural attitude and stigma, and Dr. Maheen definitely talked about that. That because of the lack of cultural awareness of how uh, different communities are perceived, there is this lack of their participation in the mainstream media and mainstream, not only the media but in the economy as well. And the way that they all can contribute, they're not able to do so. And then one needs to also assess that, okay, whether there is monitoring and evaluation taking place. The National Education Management Information System requires enhancement to provide reliable data. But then, do we have the mechanisms in place, number one, to get that data, and number two, to work on that data? So, work needs to be done in terms of investing in research for these respective uh, spaces as well, so that we are able to get the most out of it. And again, involve the communities in the way. And I do think so. Community engagement is one of the ways through which we can definitely get a very productive outcome. Thank you, Rehab.
All right, I think Rahab is trying to unmute herself. Meanwhile, what we can do is we can give our feedback. Rahab, you here?
I'm here. I'm here.
Perfect.
Ma'am, I was actually working in the office right now, so
All right.
sorry for this interruption. Thank you so much, ma'am Sana Ilyas, for this insightful and valuable perspective you shared. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Maheen Amjad to conclude what all of the speakers have shared here.
Okay, Rahab. All right. So I would really like to thank Sana to add valuable, input, and Tayyaba as well. Looking at the market that we're dealing with right now. Um, I would like to add a few things, and in the end, I would like to ask Sana and Tayyaba to please add their input in this as well. That's my understanding. Over 18 years of time period, serving not just South Asia, not just Pakistan, but Middle East and Africa as well. What is my understanding is we are talking about inclusivity, we are talking about SDGs, but we are not prepared to bring in our community to face the diversity. We feel like we are not there yet because we have a problem of um, judging and scoring every nations according to our understanding, but we are not understanding the power of diversity and inclusivity, how we can change ourselves within a minimum time period, just using with the help of internet. The time after COVID has flipped so rapidly that we have to now hurry up before we lose a lot of grounds as well, especially in contrast with Pakistan. While working towards inclusivity, my personal experience, especially looking at Women Ascension, when we reached 81 countries, what I understand that if the candidate's mindset is not prepared to face the change and towards adaptability, in some of you can say confidence to face the change and adapt and perform in that environment and analyze that environment, we are not going to succeed. And when we look at education of Pakistan, and we are fearing of AI as well, which we should not, we are not balancing our curriculum right now with on-class training, how we can mold student to face the future. And I feel like here, teacher needs more open conversation within themselves, where they need training, where they need understanding, so that they can make the students of Pakistan prepared for the future and inclusivity, facing diversity, prepare them accordingly. Secondly, understanding what's coming next, because the world is changing so rapidly, we don't know what's announced in next 1 hour, next minute, we just don't know. We are not prepared to face that as well, because whenever we having conversation, either is a new thing for them, or we are just competing our students or making them compete to the environment which is already too saturated in the market to be successful. It's too saturated. So why we are not molding our education, our classes in such a way that they can choose subject and the future practice of their profession, what future asks them to do, rather than what's there in the market. Whenever they'll be ready, it's already saturated and it's gone. So why we're not having such a conversation as a mentor in the classroom and push our policies to mold with time? We are lagging this as well. And when we talk about budget, for me, I don't understand one thing, because we are still relying on the government to feel us. The thing is, we would actually make them understand us if we know how to reason them. And when it comes to reasoning to the policy makers, there are not enough amount of people facing them, having conversation with them and convincing them, and finding ways to sustain out of the box idea to manage that budget or extend that budget or bring in more ways to improve the education sector of Pakistan, especially when it's come to budget. So we really need to sit down, have a conversation, genuine conversation with implementation, how we can help ourselves. Because our neighboring countries, you call it any country. When we look at the budget, you will see that even in every country, the budget for education is not that much surplus, but it's even higher than Pakistan. But we are not there yet. We're genuinely not there yet on real ground, and we are not voicing up in the right direction. Social media is one thing, knocking at the door is another thing. So as an educationist, and with the diversified experience, we all need to just channel together and have a conversation for our future, because now what we're doing for our future. And if we are not able to mold our candidates, these students for the future, we are definitely not sure about economy of Pakistan, and it's devastating. Mindset, conversation, implementation is really, really needed. So we need to have not just confident student, we need to have a confident and empower teachers and academicians who can genuinely talk and have a solutions with the policymakers. So Sana and Tayyaba, any of you would like to add in this conversation, please?
Dr. Mahin, you made such wonderful and pertinent points regarding that, okay, students, number one, not being ready, and we are not understanding per se what's coming next. And then you talked about that, okay, why isn't there this conversation about with the students that, okay, the market is too saturated. Now, number one is basically that awareness is not per se there. We're still very traditional when it comes to the parents' approach in terms of what are the prestigious careers that their kids can have. So mostly it's going to be an engineer, be a doctor, or anything that is trending at the moment, which as of the moment is computer sciences, or as of the moment is going to be any technical degree. They are going to go into that. So most of the time, it needs to start off with the parents, and then because by the time the students, because as university teachers, by the time the students come to us and we tell them about it, or then they share their ideas, they're like, if we're interested in arts, we're interested in politics, we're interested in policy development, but our parents are not allowing us to do so. So one of the suggestions that I usually end up giving my students in this case, because I can see that, okay, there is this parental pressure there, but then they want to pursue something. So I usually tell them, why not pursue the same interest alongside, not as, for example, a degree. So if you're interested in pursuing law, why not look at ethical concerns related to technology, or become one of the, or pursue being that person in the future. Now, somebody coming in from a medical background and again in a technical degree, or somebody who is in an art background and then can see there aren't a lot of careers there. So it's more about guiding them in terms of how they can particularly bridge that gap. Now, number two, your idea about that, okay, in terms of education budget, and then we need to come up with out of the box ideas. You're very right about it. And out of the box ideas have to come from us. We cannot expect again somebody else to hand over a solution to us. And I always believe that as Pakistanis, we are really very good at coming up with solutions, and when it comes to things that are, or problems that are present on the ground. Now, one of the things that I've seen is that last year, within the graduate education policy, HEC basically said that, okay, a two credit hour course needs to be introduced related to community service. Why don't higher education institutes take the same course as an opportunity to help students improve their communities through sustainable projects? Instead of just going ahead with a project like, yes, planting trees is very important, but why not ask students, go back to your communities, have a look at what the problem is there, or how do we think we can address a certain education gap or an inclusivity gap or a diversity? How can we address that? So that needs to be a project that students take from maybe the first or the second semester and baby it and take it forth. And it shouldn't just be a one semester thing. So I think so. This is something that, yes, we have introduced community cells, but it needs to go beyond theory. It needs to be something that is sustainable and goes further. And students understand the value of giving back to the community. That, okay, yes, we are part of the community, and how we are contributing back to the community is helping people there. So I do think so that needs to be important. And yes, we need to hurry up because a lot of time isn't present in terms of the changes that are taking place, not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of the societal changes and the attitudes that are present there. Thank you, Dr. Maheen.
Thank you, Sana.
Uh, Thank you, thank you, Miss Sana, and thank you, Dr. Mahin. Mr. Yaba, I would like you to invite you to share some insights about
Thank you
this.
so much. Thank you so much, Rehab, Dr. Maheen and Sana. So basically, yes, it is a need of the hour to, we should be very, very advanced in implementing SDGs. And I am trying my level best as a teacher, and I get to, hear and get a lot of challenges in terms of, this not being a part of the curriculum. So I feel like we as Pakistanis are extremely obsessed about digits, digits of age, digits of GPA, digits of anything. For example, I remember that one of my students was extremely obsessed with playing cricket, but his parents won't let him because they wanted him to study. Whereas I find there is nothing wrong. Cricket is such an amazing strength training, and it helps you with mobility and so many other things. But again, so I feel like, we need to kind of mm, have young teacher representation, because, I, as a kind of being at the verge of being an adult and a young teacher, whenever I am um, giving an idea, so it is overpowered by the teachers who are, if a part of the, who are older, and they feel like they know better. So I believe that, millennials or Gen Z should be a part of a teacher representation where they can talk about SDGs, because it's something new. It happened in the mid 21st century. So it should be, early, mid 2000s, 2012 onwards. It's something that should be implemented, and it is still for the elder educators, it is still something which should not exceed the bookish knowledge, right? So the first thing is there has to be a change in the curriculum, and it can happen when young teachers are given a platform to talk about it. And secondly, yes, being a university teacher, there are certain volunteering activities that are happening, but the sad thing is that, they are not given that much heat. Sometimes students end up making fake certificates of these. So I believe that it is something that it should not just be a 2 hour activity. It should be a project which the student should put their heart and soul in, and it should be in every single semester. And something, I am a huge fan of animal right, and I am an animal right activist, and I have a lot of rescued cats in my house, and I foster dogs, and I wish I could foster horses and other animals as well, but I'm not able to do that because of the constraints of space in my house. So I do believe in the fact that, I keep on telling students to, take care of animals, feed them, because they're our responsibility and we will be questioned. So these are a couple of things that can make Pakistan a way better place. Like in Turkey, all animals are spayed and neutered, and there are no pets, there are no strays. They just coexist. So, it's about time that SDGs should be coexisting. Instead of, now 14th August is coming up, I'm hoping and praying that people, instead of buying crackers and flags, they should focus on the greenery of Pakistan, because we are recently facing floods, and the situation in Lahore and so many different cities is extremely terrible, and people are like, it's not even, I can't even listen to the news because of so many casualties that are happening. So we should know that instead of building sewages, they're plants and trees, they hold the greatest, they are the least threat to floods, and they hold water. So these are things that should be implemented in our curriculum. I'm trying my level best, and I know Sana is also, because I've known Sana since a very long time, and she's doing a wonderful job. So these are things that should be happening. Now, we are doing this on our own way. Like, some teachers are doing it, some are not doing it, some are just focused on their education, which is strictly related to curriculum. However, I do believe that, um, young teachers should be given a chance to be able to design curriculum and incorporate all 17 STDs in one way or the other, and they can easily be done. Like, acha, so what do I tell my students? I'll just complete the discussion in like 1 minute. That um, now, when we are not able to do things officially, we look for jugards. And Pakistan, mein, we are a huge fan of jugards. So what we do is, I ask them to, start their own initiatives, and then they should start getting fundings, and they are getting fundings. Like, one of my colleague, she has been to so many different countries on an initiative that she took a couple of years ago. It was based in on the hygiene of women. So these things can be done. So being in Pakistan, we can also get a lot of leverage, like other countries are not able to get, because they are developed countries. So developing countries do get a lot of fundings in which students are able to travel and come back and cascade the training. So teacher training and some international fundings based on your ideas are amazing. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Ms. Tayyaba. We hope today's discussion has been informative and thought provoking, and we look forward to continuing to this important dialogue in future events. In closing, I want to thank our speakers once again for their time and expertise and participating and engaging in this crucial topic. Your contributions have provided us with a deeper understanding of the impact and causes of the lack of accessible and inclusive education on the sustainable development of marginalized communities in Pakistan. In the end, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Amjad and Women Ascension for giving me the opportunity to discuss this important topic, for being a source of resurrection to many people, and for providing the fellows and interns a platform to grow and develop their skills and gain more knowledge. Thank you, all of you. Have a great